Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you guys carving out some time in your busy schedules for today's session. Revenue leakage, a whole practice approach to capturing every dollar. The goal today is to explore how some of our high performing practices are leveraging their staff and technology, specifically their EHR, to maximize revenues while maintaining the high standard of care they offer to their patients. My name is Brett Cleary, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. I do see some familiar names on the attendee list, and it's a pleasure to connect with you guys again. I've spent about 25 years in the pediatric EHR space, and it's truly remarkable to see how far technology has come. I still remember the days. This is with a different vendor, where we celebrated our first lab interface with LabCorp. It was unidirectional, but we thought that was quite the accomplishment. So we certainly have come a long way. And just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been with Office Practicum for about a decade now. I'm currently serving as a senior account executive. My role is to facilitate our discussion this afternoon, ensure we get to the heart of the strategies, and we could move the needle for some of your practices. So with that said, we'll dive in. Before we jump in and introduce the panelists, I want to just do a couple quick housekeeping items. Number one, all attendees will be muted during the webinar. If you guys have questions, I encourage you to drop them into your questions box, the question box on the platform. If you don't see the question box, click questions in the top menu to add it to your webinar console. A reminder, you will receive this recording and your slides in your email. We'll get that to you delivered as quickly as possible. I do want to remind you, I'll probably remind you of this twice. After this meeting, there will be a short survey. We love getting your feedback. Was this helpful for you today? What topics do you want to, would you discuss in the future if OP did additional webinars? So please keep that in mind as well. As far as our agenda today, I will introduce our distinguished panelists and share some of the insights into their backgrounds and their practices. Our session really today is designed to be interactive. So for each of our core topics, we'll start with a live poll, and we want to gather your perspective. Followed by that, we'll do an open discussion among the panel. We highly encourage you to participate in these polls, as your input does really help kind of shape the conversation. So finally, we have reserved time, as I mentioned at the conclusion of the webinar, for a dedicated Q&A session to address your specific questions. So with that said, let me move on to the introductions. First things first, Kateri Haskett. Go ladies first. I need to give credit to Kateri for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we originally had Sarah Page from Pediatric Associates of Connecticut, who was going to be one of our panelists. Unfortunately, Sarah had a family emergency. She could not make it today. I called Kateri. I said, "Hey, Kateri, I need a favor," and Kateri was very kind enough to jump in and pitch in. So, Kateri, thank you very much. Kateri is the CEO of Pediatric Associates of Northern Kentucky, located south of Cincinnati. She's been with the organization for 33 years. Kateri, I hope they've given you a gold watch or something, because 33 years is a long time to work for a practice. But I'm sure they appreciate all the time that you've worked with them. But Kateri helps operate a practice with 3 locations, 28 providers, and they have approximately 90 employees. Next, we have Mr. Jay Carruthers. He's baking in Phoenix, Arizona with his 100-degree temperatures. So some of you guys in the Northeast are probably still freezing, not Jay. But Jay is a practice manager. They have two locations, 11 providers. Jay has been with Pediatric since 1994, closing on 32 years. He served as a practice manager for 7 of those years. Jay, you probably need a gold watch too. Prior to Pediatrics, Jay served in the U.S. Air Force as a medic for 20 plus years. So Jay, I want to thank you for being a panelist today, and I also want to thank you for your service. Last but not least, we have Dr. Clifford James. Now, you won't see Dr. James. Dr. James, a bit of a technical issue, so he's actually he's on audio only. But just to give you a little bit of background about Dr. James, he's a physician and owner of Kids Central Pediatrics. They are located in Knoxville and Oak Ridge, Tennessee area. They have 3 locations with 7 providers and over 20 employees. Dr. James has been with Kids Central Pediatrics for 24 years. Not only is Dr. James a business owner and physician, he is also an author. He's written at least 2 books, The Big Book of Why for Parents, 75 Tips and Tricks for New Parents, and Secrets to a Successful Pediatric Practice. Additionally, he does consulting and offers a Pediatric Wealth Strategy, which is a 12-month course on how to make more money in pediatric practice while making your practice worth more money. I will plug Dr. James' LinkedIn because I think it's some fantastic content over there. So he does put a lot of good videos and content in his LinkedIn account. I'm sure in maybe other social medias as well. So you may want to review it, maybe connect with him on LinkedIn. So with that said, again, thank you guys for being our panelists today. I know you guys have a wealth of knowledge. So let's get things kicked off. Let's go ahead, and this is where the audience, I need you guys to help participate here. We do have a polling question. What are the key responsibilities of your staff during the check-in process? Now, some of this might be applicable. Maybe you might have all of the above. Maybe they do 1 or 2 things, maybe what primarily they do. But our choices are verify insurance and collect copays, collect any open balances for the patients and perhaps the siblings, and update contact info, and ensure forms are signed, and review if well visits are and vaccines are up to date. Oop, that just kind of moved quickly. I didn't mean for it to move that quickly. I don't want to give anybody some polling information yet. And then all of the above. So if you get a chance, if you guys can go ahead and submit your polling there, that would be great. I'll give it an extra second in case you guys still need to think about it a bit more. And then we'll jump into the conversation. But yeah, so we've got the 4 choices for all of the above. And I'll give it one more second as people can make up their minds there. And let's go ahead and look at some of these results here. So it looks like for most of you guys, verifying insurance and collecting copays, it's tied with collecting open balances. A good mix. One of the things that I don't see here is review if well visits and vaccines are up to date or due. I'm going to start with Jay here, and I'm just kind of curious about your front desk, and obviously the other participants or panelists can chime in here as well. But any idea if your staff, because I know, because full disclosure, all of the panelists use the same EHR, which is Office Practicum. One of the features that you guys do have is to look at those well visits to see if they're overdue for a well visit at least, and kind of get an idea as far as where they stand on their immunizations. Do your front desk people look at that at all, Jay, or are they just kind of focused on copays as well?
Yeah, so the front desk here is trained to look for well visits. We don't have them look for vaccines because sometimes they're not as knowledgeable as the medical assistants are in the back. Sure. But as far as well visits, if they see that a family or a patient needs a well visit, they do try to get that scheduled while they have them waiting in our waiting room. And also, if we could potentially get them, if they're sick and not extremely sick, potentially do a sick to well, as on the same day that they're here, they can identify that as well. So that is a primary responsibility of the front desk to identify well checks as needed.
Okay. Kateri, anything to add to that as far as the process in your practice? I mean, obviously, Jay made a good point. You're trying to keep those patients on schedule because, if the first 3 or 4 years of life, there's a lot of well visits. And if they miss one, you don't really get that one back a lot of times. Do you guys do something similar at Pediatric Associates in Northern Kentucky?
Yeah, we're very similar to Jay in what we do at the front desk with asking about well checks and not about vaccines as much. And yeah, you've got a captive audience. They're in front of you, and they may have a few minutes while they're waiting to get called back. I will say we don't have our patients wait long, which is wonderful, but sometimes that is really valuable time to capture that. So if we don't get them on the check-in because we have a nurse waiting to get them in an exam room, we try and catch them on the way out for those schedules.
For anybody, as far as the open balances, I know there's a little bit of a human element to that, because sometimes front desk people might be apprehensive about collecting a balance or a copay. Do you guys have any strategies to make sure that money actually does go is collected? I know within the current system that you guys are using, you guys can look at both the patient balance, but you can also look at anybody that's under that guarantor. So maybe if Kimmy has a balance, does not have a balance, but Brett does under the family, you guys can collect that. Do you guys take advantage of that at all?
So we're very aggressive with that. Our assistant manager is also in charge of our referral department here. And the day before each appointment, they run through that next day's schedule, see if anybody has any balances. And if they do set alerts in OP for the front desk to notice that. But also the front desk is trained to look for it. And they're also incentivized based on a percentage of how much they collect. They can get a monthly incentive off of that too. So they do have a financial incentive as staff members for how much they collect as well, which is we found has been a big thing to get people to do that little extra step, even though it may be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys that if you guys do incentivize your front desk people. Jay, you've answered the question, but I'm curious with you, Dr. James and Kateri. Obviously, it's sort of under their umbrella of doing their job, but any rewards for making sure that the copays and balances are collected, just out of curiosity?
I mean, going back to the previous question, I'm going to jump in on my front desk. We do things backwards. So my front desk doesn't check the well visits. My nurses do after they're in, if they need one, and just seeing if we can put it into place. But then at checkout, every patient that leaves asks to have a return appointment. So either it's a return appointment based off of that sick visit or their well visit, but everybody leaving has to have their next appointment on the books. So okay. That's the way we do that. As far as making sure, one of the things that we found with OP that's been great for us being able to collect money is my billing and coding staff, whenever they go through the process of having to pay their bill, any outstanding balances, they actually lock their account. And so those patients aren't actually allowed to make their new appointment until they pay that balance. So it actually, when you lock it, it doesn't even show up that they're patients. We can see it, if we go through another screen to see, they don't show up as an active patient. You have to look at it under all. But we found by doing that, when they call and they're not allowed to make that appointment until they either pay off their bill or pay on their bill, and we send them to the billing department to do that, it's greatly increased our collections.
Okay. The one thing I wanted to mention, well, I've got you, Dr. James, and this has to do more about scheduling. I know you schedule sort of on very tactfully. So in other words, you try not to do maybe a newborn or an ADHD evaluation maybe in a certain times of the day, because it might back you up. When it backs you up, the stress gets staff gets stressed, excuse me. The patients in the waiting room longer could result in that maybe those patients being irritated, not coming back to your practice, or maybe saying bad things in a review. Can you explain a little bit as far as how you schedule to maximize being able to see patients timely?
Sure. So there's definitely patients that slow us down. So my newborns, they're always going to be 15 minutes late. They're always going to have the most paperwork. They just take the most time. Other visits, that just take more time. That there's certain well visits that are going to require blood tests and vision and hearing that slow down the putting them and getting them ready for me. And what I always tell my staff is if I'm not in a room, we're losing money. So we try and take those patients that are going to take more time in either filling out paperwork or in testing and schedule at the exact same time, maybe 2 sick visits. So like my first of every session. So I have, morning and afternoon sessions. So my first of that session is going to be newborns and anything that has to do with psych. That'll be those first 2 visits. Well, they take a while. So at the exact same time, they're going to have a pink eye or an ear infection or a strep infection. So a nurse can quickly put them in a room, and I can be seeing them while they're doing the other stuff that may be taking more time. And that way, I see this all the time where the office opens at 8, but the doctor didn't see their first patient until 8:30. Well, you've lost the potential of being able to see 2 to 3 patients at that time.
Right. No, that makes sense. Hey, Kateri, do you guys, before the patient even steps in the office, do you guys do any mobile check? And I'm not sure if you guys do, or any panelists for that matter, or at least what is your strategy to try to get that copay, maybe those forms signed, if they're needed? Maybe it's a new patient, maybe it's maybe we just need a form that needs to be signed again by a parent. What is your strategy to keep that efficiently running in the practice?
Yeah, we do remote check-in. So a reminder is sent at 3, 5, and 1 days. And with that, when they click on it and say, yes, I'm going to be there, they're asked all those questions that are asked at the front desk. So has your address changed? Has your phone number changed? Has your insurance changed? And they can add that information in there if it has. They're also asked for prior balances and the copay. I love that because as good as my front desk is,
right,
they're human.
Right.
So they're going to forget, or they're going to be intimidated, or those things are going to happen. So I love that. And I love that it means when they walk in the door, if they didn't pay at remote check-in, they already know about it. So,
right,
and I can assure my front desk, these people know they have a bill. So yes, we do utilize that as well as aggressively collecting full patient balance as well as copays. The other thing that we collect is if somebody has a high deductible health plan, for all ill visits, we collect $75 a time a visit.
okay.
If they're going to owe at least that, so we base that on if we build a 99213 with our lowest paying insurance company, we know they're going to owe that. So once we know, or they let us know that they've met their deductible, we don't collect that anymore, but that we have them pay that towards what they're going to owe. It keeps our AR a lot lower, and it gets them used to paying every time they walk in the door.
One follow-up, Kateri, and rest of the panel, feel free to chime in. When you're talking about the remote check-in, obviously you're probably dealing with a different generation of parents today, right? And they're all about technology and stuff like that. Have they gravitated towards that as far as being able to do that remote check-in, or is it one of those things where it's kind of like a marathon, not a sprint? You're just eventually trying to get more and more people to to build up to that remote check-in?
A little bit of both. We haven't been doing it that long. We've been doing it about 6 or 9 months, I think, something like that. Okay. And definitely we had out the gate, we had about 30% of people who were on it. And it's building quickly from there. But I do think there is some of that marathon, but definitely came out of the gate strong, and it's continuing to build.
Right. Great. Yeah, I guess it's sort of like patient portal. I mean, as long as you can kind of continue to get used to going to the portal, and then obviously doing the remote check-in, I'm sure it pays dividends. Let's do this. I want to make sure we're staying on track here. I want to make sure we get all our topics. So let's move on to the next one. It's another polling question. Just so for the attendees, there might be an option to make that window a little bit bigger when you're looking at this polling question. So I apologize if it's a little too small, so I'll do my best to try to go ahead and ask these questions. The question is, how do you make sure your schedule is balanced and your parents are up to date on the pediatric care they need? And our choices here, and feel free to vote when you have this chance. But the first one is to rely on parents to call or self-schedule when the practice when a checkup is needed. Number 2 is we run a recall report to see which patients are overdue and then contact the parents. Our providers alert the staff to create a future appointment. And the last is we send a postcard or maybe a call or a text to parents to remind them to schedule an appointment. So if you guys could go ahead and select which is most applicable for your practice, that would be great. And I'll give it another few more seconds and let the folks chime in here. And let me go ahead and flip this screen and see what we get here. All righty. So our providers alert the staff to create a future appointment. I would imagine that would be the most common thing. Followed by we rely on parents to call the practice when the checkup is needed, and for a tie for that, we send a postcard or a text. So not surprising. Yeah, I think that's certainly is the protocol. I guess to start off with Dr. James, when you are in the looking at the visit, is that how you do it? Do you typically go ahead and have that the front desk or the people that are checking them out go and schedule the appointments when they need to see the next appointment?
Yes. So they make their next appointment, and so everybody has an appointment on the books. Sometimes we'll have parents that'll say, well, I don't want to make an appointment today. I'll call you back. We make an appointment for them. Even if they didn't want to, we put it on the books. So it's there. About half the time they'll show up and didn't even remember they made an appointment because, well, they didn't. But it gets it on there so that they then get a text before that visit, so then they can change it based on their schedule. But also, if they don't show up for that appointment, then we know who we need to contact to reschedule. Sometimes those do fall through the cracks, and then Tanya, our COO, she then runs reports and sends out mass text messages to people that need to make an appointment, and she tends to do those when she knows that we're going to be having a slow time.
Right. So a little bit of balance there is what we're talking about. Yeah. Hey, Jay, quick question for you. Do you guys do that too? I mean, the easy recall is obviously the well visits, right? Because that's based on the periodicity schedule. We kind of know when these kids need to have their next well. Do you guys do anything else besides that? I'm thinking ADHD follow-up visits, maybe med checks, obesity, asthma monitoring. Do you guys do anything outside the box besides well visits by chance?
So no, we don't. The simple reason that the well check needs are tremendous, and we get huge bang for our buck and our time with the well check side of it. Particularly with the recall reports, OP has a text system that'll allow you to run the recall reports, and we run it monthly, and text it out to every single parent that is on that recall report. Tell them, hey, your child's due for a well check. Give us a call. And we literally ran one last Wednesday and had over 400 people call us within 2 days for appointments.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It took 5 minutes for me to run the report and send out the texts. And to get that much bang for our time is amazing. The other thing that we get a big driver from is we send out a monthly newsletter through Constant Contact. Right now we have about 15,000 emails that it goes out to. And off of that newsletter, which we run in the first of the month, we generally get another 100 or so parents who call or go to our website to, request an appointment from that. So for very little work, we get a huge amount of parents, recognizing, oh, my child's due. Well, like I said, we do all the other ththings as well, but those are the two easiest and least amount of work for any of us here to do to get that big bang.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And then, Kateri, just to kind of lean on you a little bit, because I think I read a case study recently where I think you guys targeted maybe some of the older kids. Those kids, they tend to come only in when they're sick or they needed some sort of form for school, maybe sports, physical, things like that. I think you guys had a kind of targeted approach for your older kids. I was hoping you could kind of explain about that a little bit.
Yeah, we do. We do similar to what Jay does. We'll run that report, but we will run that report based on age. So we run it for every age. but we try to pick out what that person is going to want or need. So if we're sending that out to our parents of 16-year-olds, we'll say, we can fill out your sports physical form when you're in for that checkup, or something that helps make it more meaningful, because we see a drop off in those kids coming in for those checkups. And then we send those out, just like Dr. James, we send those out when we know we're going to be a little slower. Our front desk is going to have a little bit more time, and kind of spread those out throughout the month. And we'll also print those lists, because some people respond better to a personal phone call. Yeah. So if the front desk has any downtime, they'll call those patients to do a recall that way. But really trying, and if we see that people haven't been in for 2 years, we'll actually send a letter that says, hey, are you still a patient here? We're going to make you inactive if you choose not to come in. And, right. And that a lot of times will motivate the parents as well.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I guess I'll open it up to Dr. James and Kateri, and then we'll move on. Besides the well visits, do you guys use that recall for any, whether it's vaccines or whether it's some other care plans? Do you guys use any other care plan with Office Practicum? Recalls?
Well, that's one thing I preach to my consulting, clients, is that people lose tons of money with the words, call me back if you need me, or things like that. You always need a plan on when you're going to see them back. It always makes the patients feel better too, because,
the next plan of action is, because they're either not going to call you, or
they're going to forget, or things like that. So anything that I have that's like chronic conditions, so, definitely my ADHD, depression, anxiety, those are easy. But my asthma, my constipation, my GERD, anything like that, they all have a plan of when we're going to see them next, and, and they need appointments on the book.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we do
ahead,
similar
Kateri.
with those. No, that's all right. We do similar with those, but also I will give a shout out to OP, because there is a great tool for vaccines. So we can run and see every patient that is behind or due for specific vaccines. And we will run that same type thing, where we'll contact those parents and say, hey, you're behind on vaccines. This is really important. We need to get you in. And again, some parents don't see the value in coming in for a checkup. And right. So we want to let them know the value. And sometimes a vaccine is what makes that value for them.
Okay. Let's move on to our third topic. And this third topic has to do with coding and what your providers have to manually do. I'll read the question followed by the answers, and feel free to answer these polling questions. What coding do your providers have to manually do? Do they just have to do do they do ICD-10s and E&M coding, labs and procedures, vaccines, vaccine admin codes? Do they pretty much do coding for the whole visit? E&M procedures, lab screenings, vaccines, admin codes, modifiers if you've got a sick or well and you need to put a sick. So if you guys want to go ahead and vote, that would be great. And we'll have a conversation on that. Dr. James, I might lean on you on this one, because I know you're in the trenches with coding. So you might be our expert on this particular topic, but we'll give it a minute and let these people answer and see what the results look like. All right, let's take a look at those results here. All right. Well, it looks like for most people, it looks like they're for the most part, they're coding for the whole visit. So the E&M procedure, lab screening. So you really kind of heavily depend on the providers to do that, what it sounds like. We do have, looks like some people had mentioned just the ICD-10 and the E&M codes. Dr. James, like I said, I was going to lean on you because obviously part of this has to do with templates and creation. And I think I'd read something with you as far as maybe it might have been an allergy visit. We're kind of getting to that time of the year, right? So with allergy visits and the common default is 99213, but I think what you were trying to emphasize is if you put a little sweat into creating your templates, certainly you can probably get paid for your visit. That's probably more in line with what you deserve. And if you could just kind of explain that, that would be great.
Sure. So, I recommend that, when you see that patient, when you know what's going on at that moment, you should already know what your level of service is going to be. So then your documentation or your template needs to reflect that. So yeah, the difference between a level 3 and a level 4 isn't usually in what you did. It's not even usually the complexity of the patient. It usually comes down to a 5 to 7 word sentence or words in there. And so I make sure that the templates reflect that.
Thing is, I would say that of your 89.9
that are coding everything, every single one of those people is losing a crap ton of money because providers are terrible coders. They're awful. And so I try and make it where the only thing they're doing, my providers, is they're doing the level of service and making sure that they document to that level of service. Every other thing that's coded is done by my coding people because they're the experts in it. That's what they're doing. And they're going to go through that chart. So yeah, I try and make my templates so that they are as no-brainer as possible so that they just answer the questions and that will fill it in and make sure that we document to that level of service. But after that, it's my coding and billing people that are responsible for making sure that all the modifiers and the right codes are in there and that they fight those and know that. Because to be honest, I have different modifiers for the same service for sometimes different insurance providers. So you may use one modifier for Blue Cross Blue Shield and a totally different one for Cigna. My providers aren't going to keep up with that. And so if you're depending on your provider to do your coding, you're losing money.
Yeah, just for the audience to know, so with Office Practicum, we actually ship with 200 sick and well visit templates. They're written by a pediatrician, so they're very good templates. But maybe as Dr. James is kind of attesting here, you can modify those templates, and I think that's kind of what Dr. James is getting at as far as being able to modify the templates to obviously to be paid for the work that he has done for that patient. Transitioning over to Kateri or Jay, as far as what you're requiring your physicians and nurse practitioners to do, is OP getting most of those templates and like doing that coding? Again, when we talk about CPTs, I know that's either decision making or MDM built in the system. But as far as the vaccine codes, those are dropping for them and all that good stuff. I just wonder if you guys could jump in there and just have a quick word on that.
Yeah, as far as the vaccines and most procedures, that should be coded in by your office staff, your MAs or your nurses when they're doing the actual vaccines and procedures. When they're picking, specific lots out of the system, OP should be, set up for ease. Even a new medical assistant can figure that out. All they got to do is click the right button and it should automatically put it into the charges. So the system alleviates a lot of work for the doctors and providers by allowing the MAs and the nurses to do a lot of it.
Okay.
So we utilized a little different. It sounds like we have set up our templates. So like our well templates, if it's a 2-month visit, we know that usually these are the vaccines they're going to get, and these are the administration codes that come with that. So those are in there as a default, and then if there's something different, they can be removed. But those are the default. And so that coding is really already there. Needs to be ordered by the physician, but it is a standing order for the 2-month, 4-month, 6-month appointments for those vaccines. For an ill visit, if the nurse puts in strep throat, then that procedure is going to populate for a throat culture for that template. And again, it can be changed. It can be, maybe we want to do a COVID swab as well, and we can add that in. But the most likely labs, procedures, vaccines are all going to populate based on the template that has been chosen for that patient.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, let me mention this too. My team might give me a hard time, but I kind of want to expand our conversation on one more topic, which was not in the slide deck, but I thought it was an important one, and it was from you, Dr. James. You were on LinkedIn 5 hours ago, and you said, and I'll read this post. Most practices say they have a revenue problem. They don't. They have a visibility problem. What are you doing to market your business? Not what you think works, not what you tried once, not what your ops manager posted last month. What are you consistently doing every single week to get in front of new patients? Because here's the truth, most physicians don't want to hear. If you're not actively marketing your practice, you are slowly dying, excuse me. Referrals are not a strategy. Insurance panels are not a strategy. Being a good doctor is not a strategy. That's baseline, not the growth engine. Growth comes from attention. So with that said, obviously in pediatrics, you have a certain percentage of your patients that are going to age out every year. We know that. And I'm curious, and anybody can weigh in here, what do you guys do to get in front of your community, just to reinforce you are the best option in your community? Anything that you guys do consistently, as Dr. James mentioned, I certainly I asked you, Dr. James, just because I read your post, so I'm curious what you guys do on a weekly basis to help ensure that revenue continues to come in.
Well, since it was my post, I'll start. So one, I do social media like crazy. So there's, I have a TikTok channel. I've had a couple of them. Every once in a while I get banned and have to start all over again. But that's by far our cheapest way to get patients. So I post something every day on my TikTok. It's on, if you want to follow it, it's Help Mommy 66. Feel free to copy my posts and do your own the same way. I don't care. So that's, I have patients that have found me on TikTok and
drove 5 hours to see me. So that's the one thing.
And as far as, advertising, we are constantly advertising for the, growth of our practice. I tell people, your growth engine's your newborns, and, you should be calculating that on a monthly basis. How many newborns did you get per provider? I think if you're a growing practice, you should have, somewhere, 17 to 20 per provider per month of either new patients or newborns. Anything less than that, from the 13 to that, you may be maintaining. Less than that, you're a dying practice. So we do very targeted advertising where we geofence different areas that we found that are good places to find newborns. And so that's something that we have built in our advertising with our partnerships with our advertising to make sure that we target those. And so, it's nice in OP because you can tell exactly how many newborns we have. So, our 6 providers are typically bringing in about 110 newborns per month.
Okay. Jay, do you guys do anything actively to get in front of people? Just to kind of reiterate, you're one of the best pediatric practices in Phoenix.
So we do a lot of marketing as well, but Dr. James is correct. Not a single patient wants to come here to see me. Most don't ever want to see me. The parents want to see their doctors and their providers. And I'm constantly trying to leverage my physicians in particular as often as possible in social media posts and any of our marketing campaigns. They also, they participate in various things at schools and the various hospitals down here, to get their faces out there. But I tell them all the time, we cannot have enough of their time when it comes to a simple marketing campaign of any kind, because they are the rock stars. The staff, myself, we're all kind and gentle, whatever, but not a single parent cares about that. They want to see their doctor and their providers. So I agree with Dr. James. The more they can get out there, the better. And there's a million different ways to market yourselves.
Yeah. Kateri, anything you want to add to this?
Well said, gentlemen. And like Jay said earlier, we do a monthly newsletter as well that keeps us out in front of people. keeps us relevant, engagement in the community, social media, kind of all the regular players. We do visit our OB offices and bring cookies and bring flyers to them and keep that referral source going as well.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. I kind of put you on the spot there, so I appreciate you guys answering that question. Kimmy, back at the office, I may need your help a little bit on some of these questions. I'm kind of going through these. Let me ask a couple of these, and I'll ask them for our folks. And I think we just mentioned this, but I think again, Dr. James, are templates customizable if they have certain tests we make mandatory when a specific diagnosis is suspected?
So the templates, I can make my own templates, or I can take and I can alter the templates that OP provided for me. And so, yes, I can list where that test is already ordered. And then if we don't do it for some reason, the nurse can then take and delete that. But I do have those already pre-populated. You do?
Okay. I'll stay with you real quick, Dr. James, because I think you might have mentioned this as far as locking out of patients. Do you know of any legal, I think this is from one of our attendees, are there any legal ramifications around locking a patient's account for outstanding payments? We may have to defer that to an attorney, but I was just kind of curious if you knew anything about that.
So as far as there are some legal ramifications. I mean, they are your patients, right? And so if they walk through the door and they are sick, you have to at least, look at them and make sure they're stable and stuff like that. They are your patients. Now, when they're calling you to make an appointment, that is not necessarily true. I mean, if your, slots are full or something like that, you don't have to, see them. That's something that you can schedule appointments and stuff like that. But, it is their responsibility, their legal responsibility to pay their bills. So there's that as well. Sure. But if they walk through the door, whether their bill is paid or not, you have to see them. They are your patient.
Right. Makes sense. Hey, Kateri and Jay, do you guys have any advice for front desk staff who are uncomfortable for asking money? I know we kind of talked about that, but Kateri, you kind of hinted at like, hey, they probably know they have a bill already, but any suggestions on that?
My advice when I talk to the front desk about it is usually, yes, they know they owe it, and you don't go to the grocery and not pay for your groceries. Nobody at the grocery hesitates to ask you to pay. And so you're not doing anything unreasonable. And also, instead of saying, do you want to pay that bill today? It's, how will you be paying that? Will that be a check or charge today?
Right.
So giving them some little tips and a little bit of verbiage to use and support on that, I think helps them a lot.
Perfect. Jay, were you going to add anything to that?
Yeah, we've changed our model over the years, and we've learned that the people who are good at it, and we keep them there. Okay. So the people who have the confidence and the ability to ask that simple question, usually if you ask it, you get it. But if they can ask that question and have a little bit of push, they do better. And we have found that it just doesn't work with certain people, and we put them on the phones, we put them somewhere else where they're more effective. But the people who are most effective at doing it, we keep them there very consistently at both of our offices. And then we also do give them, it's not a huge incentive, but we give them a small incentive for a percentage of what they collect.
Gotcha. I need a quick answer.
I'd like to add something that's I'd like to answer
James.
something that's maybe slightly controversial, but something that I've found over the years. Okay. When it goes to asking money, especially if they owe large balances, ask the dad. Moms, and this sounds sexist, but moms are the control of the checkbook and the family household. They're very conservative and they're very tight. And so their whole job is to dole out as little as possible. They're great with the money and they want to keep it in the household. If you ask a guy, they feel embarrassed and they will pay the whole bill.
Oh, not a bad idea. There you go.
I can tell you that I see that as well. Unfortunately, we're about 95% of people walk through the doors moms. We see very few dads here. That could be just our demographics. I'm not sure, but Dr. James is correct that we see that as well. The dads are embarrassed and they pay.
Yeah. Hey guys, I need a quick answer on this because we're up against the time. If there was just one thing to focus on revenue leakage, what would you tackle first? Kateri, I'll start with you.
Getting the patients in the door.
Okay.
You can't
Jay.
bill for it if it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's very true. Jay, anything?
Yeah, Kateri is correct. But another thing is Dr. James said doctors and providers are not great coders. The simple difference between a 1.4 and a 1.3 over time is huge.
Gotcha. Dr. James, one thing to tackle, what would it be with revenue leakage?
Stop undercoding. Everybody's undercoding. Go for those level 4s. Look at, run your reports. Find out what your percentage of level 3s is versus level 4s. If it's not pretty much 50-50, you got a problem. And make sure that when the person comes in for a well visit and they're also sick, that you're capturing that EM charge as well. Should have about 20 to 40% of all your well visits have an EM code as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Hey, real quick, I'll just plug, just because this webinar was powered through Office Practica, and there's a limited promo. Sign up for OPHR contract by May 31st, 2026, and get 1 year of practice analytics and benchmarking for free. It's an $800 savings per provider. So I wanted to mention that. Some resources. Again, you guys will get a copy of this slide deck. There's some pretty good resources. There's a good case study here. This was from Sarah Page, her practice as far as her experience going from the implementation experience. Frequently asked questions about switching to OP, and there is an EHR comparison checklist. So that will actually come with these slides. As I had mentioned, if you guys could please fill out the survey as this webinar concludes, that'd be wonderful. I want to thank my panelists today. You guys are fantastic. Please, if today's discussion sparked any questions to the practice, we're going to keep this open for a few more minutes. There's a schedule a discovery call button in the webinar console. So when you can connect with our team, and certainly, of course, if you're already working with anybody from OP, certainly follow up with them as well. But yeah, the short pop-up survey would be awesome. Again, we appreciate you guys taking a moment to share your feedback. We appreciate you being on the session today. I hope it was helpful, and I hope everyone has a great week. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks so much, guys.